who decides who is right and who is wrong? Because you see, when you try to posit that morality should be subjective, when you talk about values, who decides which value is right and wrong? For example, if I were to ask you, do you value people who are anti-abortion or pro-abortion? So I'm a Muslim. I obviously, speak about Islam, interreligious dialogue with other religions like Christianity, sometimes Hinduism, sometimes Judaism, depending on what religions they follow. So yeah, it does differ with different people. Do you have a particular belief or?
No, not particularly. But we were raised Christian, but.
Okay.
But most discussions here are about religion and.
No, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So this place, Speaker's Corner, it's been like 150 years now,
Yeah.
and you can talk about any topic. The whole idea of this place is to encourage freedom of speech.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made you guys? I know you come from a Christian background. What made you leave belief in God? What made you stop believing in God? Was there any particular reason?
It's a difficult question on a Sunday.
Sorry? You don't like going to the church on Sundays?
Well, it's not stopping believing. It's stopping believing. It's I think it's to be practical.
Okay. So what's not practical about belief in God? I think it actually.
It's not about. That's not what. It's not about going to church, etc. I think it's about the daily, how you live.
Yeah, but don't you think religion gives you a framework under which to live your life, rather than just, doing anything and everything?
Yeah, but that's right.
Religion instills morality into you.
Yeah, but then you suggest implicitly that without religion there's no morality, which is not the case.
No, that's not true. In fact, you don't need to be religious to have, I think, most moralities. But there are certain moralities which is dictated by religion. And in fact, even the ones who don't believe in God, they ultimately get their morality from society, and society mostly gets it from religious books. Yeah, but it doesn't mean like an atheist doesn't have morality. That's not true. But when we ask two atheists, they have completely two different moralities. So what will be good for one atheist will be completely like evil and bad for the other atheist. But within an organized religion, I think it's more or less, it's agreed upon what is good and bad. Like for example, in Islam, we believe in halal and haram. Yeah, we believe in the worship of one God. So if any other so-called Muslim says that, oh, I believe in more than one God, then clearly he's not following the framework of Islam. So in an organized religion, morality is something which is more or less objective. And it's not based on your own desires and whims, which is a subjective nature, like we see amongst the atheists. For example, one atheist will say abortion is wrong. Another atheist will say, oh, it's perfectly okay if the woman wants it.
Yeah, but you say that religion has
a framework, yeah.
A clear framework.
Yeah.
But it's highly dependent on how people interpret it. You have, I think, also in
yeah, there will always be
how you read what is written. If you read it from,
and that's the reason I think even in Christianity, like in Catholicism, they have like scholars and saints for who dictate how to interpret. Similarly, in Islam, we have scholars as well. The ones who are given the authority to interpret the text. Okay. So, for example, if you were studying maths, just one second. If you were studying maths or physics, yeah, and anyone in your class says anything, would you listen to them or would you listen to your professor who's teaching you? You can listen to both, but ultimately the authority lies with the one who's qualified. Yeah? And the same within religion. People do interpret. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're absolutely right. People do have their own subjective interpretations, but ultimately we give weight to the ones who are scholars. But within atheism, you don't have such a framework. In atheism, anything goes, isn't it?
Yes. The question is for me.
Yeah. So who ultimately decides them? Who is going to say? Sorry, what's your name? Frank. Who is going to say Frank is right or James is right? Who's going to decide that?
What is right is that you live according to a system of values that you inherit from your parents, from your neighborhood.
Were your parents Christian?
Yes.
So you see, you're living by the morals of religion. by your own definition.
But I agree that it's all sourced by religion or mix of religion, culture, whatever.
But the question is, who decides who is right and who is wrong? Because you see, when you try to posit that morality should be subjective, when you talk about values, who decides which value is right and wrong? For example, if I were to ask you, do you value people who are anti-abortion or pro-abortion? Whom would you agree with?
I think that it's more that it's the that it needs more subtlety in the interpretation, because a context can make you think differently.
Yeah, I agree. There are exceptions. For example, even in Islam, scholars, they give exceptions to abortions being allowed in certain scenarios, like in the case of rape or in the case of where the mother's life is in danger or something like that. So we are not talking about exceptions. Generally, when abortions take place, you're talking about something like
there you could say
something like 70 million per year.
Yeah, but
that many abortions.
Majority,
majority are basically because.
No, but I agree. But the majority, or I would say value based, I would say against. But you have to interpret the context. It's not a clear.
So let's say if there was no exception, if there wasn't any harm to anyone, then would you still say abortion is okay?
And I said it's not okay, but there could be situations that it's acceptable.
Yeah, I'm not talking about exceptions.
Yeah.
I'm talking generally most abortions, the majority of them happen because of unplanned pregnancies. Yeah, and we are talking about 72 million abortions a year.
I agree.
You're talking about a huge number. And if you're anti-abortion, today none of the developed world today, or even the poorer countries, they allow abortion, which has become normalized now, you see. So that's why I'm telling you, we need an ultimate arbitrator who has authority to decide what is right and what is wrong. And it shouldn't be based on subjective whims and desires. Yeah, exactly. So when you have...
But how will he judge in this particular case?
Yeah, I mean, judgment of God can come in many different ways, many different forms. It could be either in this life or it could be in the hereafter. Because we believe that when we die, that is not going to be the end. That's going to be a new beginning. In fact, a new beginning which has no end.
Yeah.
So you see, God is going to judge, even if you, not you personally, but even if a person who has done wrong or evil, if he thinks or she thinks that they can get away in this world, in the hereafter, the punishment is awaiting.
Yeah.
So you see, this kind of justice system, it's even better than karma. Because you see, in karma, which is normally the dharmic faiths, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, they all believe this, in the karmic justice system. But in a karmic justice system, you only have a binary. Either you're punished or you're rewarded. Yes? In Islam, we have the most beautiful and the most important aspect, which every human being understands, love and justice. And the most important, forgiveness. In the karmic, they don't have forgiveness. So when a child is born without limbs, yes, they say, oh, that is because of the bad deeds it has done in its previous life. But nobody, even the child doesn't know what wrong it has done, so that it doesn't repeat the same mistake in this life. So you see, that system is not really justice. It's just, I think, a figment of someone's imagination. And there's no justice. But you see, in Islam, and I think most Abrahamic faiths, they believe in the concept of hell and heaven. But they also believe in the concept of forgiveness of God. God doesn't mean just like you do something wrong, He's going to strike you at that moment. God is going to give you your entire life sometimes, the opportunities in that space, maybe 80 years, 90 years, whatever, your life, your entire life is the duration of that. So within that, this is the mercy of God. Because if He wanted, He could have struck you down as soon as you committed a sin. So He doesn't do that. He gives you chance after chance after chance, just like a loving parent. They want the child to come to the right path, yes, through mercy and love, and at the same time justice as well. So sometimes you might have like a blip in your life, yes, and sometimes we have highs and lows, isn't it, in our life? Now, if you never had the highs and lows, okay, then you wouldn't be alive. Just like the ECG, when it's not moving.
Boring also.
Yeah, like the ECG, if it's flat, you're dead, right? So everyone, and that includes the pious people, the righteous people, the prophets, even the sinners, all of them, they have ups and downs in their life. It is how we deal with that, both during the ups and during the highs and the lows. How we deal with the situation, that is how we are judged by God. Yes. So people who are, patient, they will obviously embrace that moment and learn from it, and maybe become stronger to it. I mean, look at the people in Gaza, little children. When the bombs are falling them down, even then you see the courage and their patience. We can't even imagine that. So it's unmatched. Those people who are committing these atrocities, modern genocide, on live TV today, yes, most of the world has turned a blind eye. Yes, because there is power dynamics. And this is what I'm telling, that there must be one arbitrator who is just and who is merciful at the same time, loving, but at the same time is just as well. And if he gives certain people the freedom in this life to do as they please, then in the hereafter there is a punishment waiting for them. Yeah, and don't you think that's what justice should be? Because sometimes even the worldly justice is not enough. Let's say this person who's committing atrocities and genocides and murders or something, even if they get caught and they're punished, they might get like one death sentence maybe. But how does it do justice to those millions of people, lives they have impacted? Take Hitler, for example. Let's say if Hitler was caught and he was given the electric chair, for example, he would die one life and that's it. Yeah. But we got millions of people who suffered because of that. Yeah? How will he get punished? That's why both in terms of justice and in the way the justice has been executed, God is the best to do that. And that's the reason we should become believers in this just God who is able to not only give us a life which is full of confusion sometimes, but then he gives us the clear guidance how to go about our life.
Well, I respect very much your position, and it's interesting.
Have you ever read the Quran?
But sorry?
Have you read the Quran?
No.
Would you like a free copy if we gave you one? You read English?
It's not that I'm against or whatever, or I'm not particularly into it. As I said, I live a life of where you grow up with certain values and how you see things and how you judge on things. And that's how I live. And I think also that, for example, I come from Belgium. In Belgium, you have a lot of people who lost, between brackets, their faith because there was, I would say, the church was not a good example in a lot of things. Abuse things, etc. So people, I think, lost a bit the faith in the authority.
I see what you mean. Yeah. In religious authority.
In religious authority.
But by the way,
you see in the world,
religion is not the monopoly of just Christians.
No.
There are
but also
a lot more options out there. So maybe you should look into Islam. Islam today is the fastest growing religion, including in Belgium, in Europe, in America, in Asia, all the places. The reason for that is because of the simplicity of the message of Islam, and also you talk about authority. We believe that the Quran is preserved and as a guidance which is from God is the best guidance, because our Creator knows us best.
What?
Our Creator, He knows us best.
Creator.
Yes. Just like, if you had a phone or a watch, whoever is the manufacturer of that phone or the watch, they give you a guide, isn't it? Yeah. The do's and the don'ts. If you don't abide by that, then your item, whatever the product is going to suffer. And you're going to suffer as well because of that, because there's a monetary, obviously, element to it, and you might, be at loss. Similarly, God has told us exactly what are the do's and the don'ts. We have the do's as the halal and the don'ts as the haram, means prohibited. So God tells us that as long as you abide by that, then you will lead a life which is, fulfilling both your needs which are spiritual and also material. God is not telling us not to become rich as long as you do it in the right way, in the halal way. And God is also not telling you to, leave the society and become an ascetic, go live in a mountain or something. This is not the way of life. We can live within the society, coexist within the society with different religions, with different people, with different kind of mentalities. But if you follow this guidance, then that will be the best for you. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes, what happens is like you have people following different moralities because it's subjective, and they end up arguing, they end up having problems in their life. The reason for that is because nobody wants to accept the other's authority. But for us, if we make God the authority, then everything falls in place nicely. Do you agree? Okay. Anyway, what's your name?
Frank.
Frank, yeah, sorry, I asked you earlier. My name's Hashim. So yeah, I mean, if you want a free Quran in English, we'll give it to you, no problem.
But I found it interesting, and I wish you a lot of success with you. So your role here is to convince people? Or?
Not to convince, like I said, we educate people.
Yeah.
Convincing is for God Almighty. Okay, we believe that He's the only one who gives hidayah, He's the only one who gives guidance. So for us is to convey the message, yes, as to the best of our ability, and then it's up to the person who's listening, to agree or disagree, and maybe this could be like a spark for you to go and investigate into Islam and see what exactly the teachings are. Okay. Because, like you said, you come from Belgium, and the people over there lost faith in religious authority. But don't forget, Christianity is not the only authority, or they don't have the monopoly on religion. No. Okay, so if we keep our options open, by the way, there are thousands of religions. Yeah. Neither you nor me can investigate all of them in our lifetime. Yeah. So I'll give you a hint how to narrow it down. The best way to do it is to believe investigate a religion which promotes monotheism, belief in one God. Yeah. The reason that is the case is because monotheism is the key. Imagine if somebody believed in more than one God. Yeah. If they both are God, then they should have the same power, same will, same abilities, everything. Now, if one God says that, I want rain now, another one says, no,
you can choose.
I want sunrise now. I want clear, bright skies with a really sunny day. They both are equally powerful. Yeah. Whose will is going to win? You see, ultimately what happens in many of these religions which believe in multiple gods, you end up seeing that the gods fight with each other. There's wars, and that is not logically, that doesn't make sense logically. So believing in monotheism, narrow it down to investigating religions which proclaim that they believe in one God, and that is the key. Anyway, Frank, very nice speaking to you. You take care. Have a lovely day, guys. May Allah give them hidayah. It's a month of Ramadan. Tonight, inshallah, is going to be the 27th night. So, it depends where you are in the world, of course, yeah. Over here is the 27th night tonight, inshallah. So do pray for them. May Allah give them hidayah and bring them to the Sirat al-Mustaqim, which is the right path. And to Tawheed, most importantly, believe in the oneness of Allah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.